Dr. Amanda Hayes hadn't slept in 36 hours, but she couldn't look away from her monitor at NASA's Deep Space Communication Array in New Mexico. The signal pattern pulsing across her screen defied every known natural phenomenon. Her trembling fingers wrapped around her fourth cup of coffee as she cross-referenced the data for the 100th time. "Mark, you need to see this," she called to her colleague, Dr. Mark Peterson, who was dozing in the break room. "It's structured. Too structured." The signal had first appeared 3 days ago, a subtle anomaly in the background noise from the direction of Proxima Centauri. Most of her colleagues had dismissed it as equipment malfunction or stellar interference, but Amanda had stayed, watching as the pattern grew stronger, more deliberate, until it became impossible to ignore. Mark shuffled over, his skepticism evident in his tired eyes. "Amanda, we've been over this. The bandwidth variations are probably just." He stopped mid-sentence, squinting at the screen. "Wait, run that sequence again." Amanda's fingers flew across the keyboard, and the pattern repeated, 7 distinct pulses, each carrying complex mathematical sequences that couldn't be natural. The computer had already ruled out every known source of cosmic radiation, pulsar emissions, and human-made signals. "It's not just structured," Mark whispered, fully awake now. "It's a primer, like the ones we designed to communicate with extraterrestrial intelligence. But this is far more sophisticated." The next 4 hours became a blur of activity. The facility transformed from its usual quiet efficiency into controlled chaos. Senior officials arrived in unmarked vehicles, and NASA's top cryptographers connected remotely. As they worked to decode the message, Amanda noticed something that made her blood run cold. "The signal's getting stronger," she announced, interrupting a heated debate about notification protocols. "Not because it's being broadcast with more power, but because the source is getting closer." The room fell silent. On the main screen, new data streamed in as more arrays around the world picked up the transmission. The message repeated in multiple frequencies, each iteration more refined, more precise. It was as if whatever sent it was learning, adapting its communication methods in real time to match Earth's technological capabilities. At 3:47 a.m. Mountain Time, the first decoded segments appeared on Amanda's screen. Her hand shook as she read the words, translated from pure mathematics into English. "To the inhabitants of Earth, high-gravity adaptation confirmed. Atmospheric toxicity resistance verified. Temperature extreme survival documented. Your species possesses the traits necessary for survival. We break quarantine protocol out of desperate need. Our civilization faces extinction. We require your unique capabilities. Please respond." The message continued with precise coordinates for transmission and a mathematical proof so elegant it brought tears to Amanda's eyes. This was no hoax. The complexity of the calculations alone demonstrated a level of scientific understanding far beyond current human capability. "They're afraid of us," Mark said softly, reading over her shoulder. "Look at the language. High-gravity adaptation. Toxicity resistance. They're describing Earth like it's some kind of deadly crucible, and they're describing us like we're monsters they need." Amanda finished. "Monsters who can survive things they can't." The facility's director, Dr. James Cooper, stepped forward. His face was ashen, but his voice remained steady. "Dr. Hayes, prepare a response using their mathematical framework. Dr. Peterson, coordinate with global observatories to track their approach vector." He paused, looking at each person in the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, everything changes tonight. Humanity just got drafted into a war we didn't know was being fought, and apparently, we're the heavy artillery they've been praying for." As Amanda began composing humanity's first response to an alien civilization, she couldn't shake the feeling that Earth's reputation as a death world was about to become its greatest asset. Somewhere out there, among the stars, an advanced civilization was so desperate they were willing to reach out to the very species they had quarantined. And Amanda Hayes, who had spent her career searching for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence, finally understood why they might have been hiding from us all along. Colonel Jack Morrison stood in the Pentagon's secure briefing room, staring at 4 personnel files spread across the holographic display. Each candidate's profile glowed with commendations, warnings, and psychological evaluations that would make most recruitment officers nervous. These weren't soldiers. They were specialists who pushed the boundaries of human capability. "Sir, with respect," Lieutenant Sarah Brooks interjected, "these people are unstable." Morrison allowed himself a grim smile. "That's exactly why we need them, Lieutenant. The aliens didn't call Earth because they wanted stable. They called us because they needed survivors." The first profile expanded. Kate pressured Devil Reynolds. The deep-sea welder had survived 3 hours trapped at crushing depths during the Mariana Trench disaster, improvising repairs to her damaged pressure suit using nothing but spare parts and raw determination. The footage of her emergence, suit half-melted and laughing like a madwoman, had been classified immediately. "Reynolds can think clearly under pressures that would crush a submarine," Morrison noted. "More importantly, she understands how pressure can be weaponized." The second profile showed Marcus Venom Thompson, whose revolutionary work with snake venom had saved millions. What the public didn't know was that he'd developed his antidotes by systematically exposing himself to microdoses of every deadly toxin he studied. His body had become a living laboratory of immunities. "He doesn't just study deadly creatures," Morrison continued. "He thinks like them." Lisa Ghost Martinez's file was heavily redacted. Her jungle warfare techniques had rewritten military doctrine after she single-handedly evacuated 30 civilians from a guerrilla-held territory. She'd survived 3 weeks in the densest rainforest, outmaneuvering both hostile forces and the deadliest predators nature could throw at her. The final profile belonged to Mike Frost Anderson. His ice field rescue record remained unmatched because he did the impossible, finding people in conditions that should have meant certain death. He'd once survived a week buried in an avalanche, emerging with detailed notes about ice crystallization patterns. "Assemble them," came the order from General Hammond's video feed. "You have 24 hours. The next day, 4 helicopters converged on a secret facility in Nevada. Kate Reynolds arrived first, her custom pressure suit humming softly. She'd modified it for terrestrial use, but the alien tech implications made her eyes gleam with possibility. Marcus Thompson followed, carrying a secure case of what he called his samples. The security team gave him a wide berth, their sensors detecting the cocktail of modified venoms coursing through his system. Lisa Martinez simply appeared, as if materializing from the desert shadows. She'd made the last 100 miles on foot, arguing that proper insertion protocols never hurt. Her eyes constantly scanned the horizon, cataloging angles of approach and potential cover. Mike Anderson arrived last, his thermal regulation suit seeming excessive in the desert heat. He'd insisted on bringing his specialized temperature monitoring equipment, claiming that extreme heat posed as many interesting challenges as the cold. Morrison watched them size each other up in the briefing room. 4 of the deadliest specialists on Earth, each pushing the boundaries of human survival in their own way. 3 days ago, he began, humanity received a distress call from the stars. We're not alone in the universe, but we might be the only ones tough enough to survive what's coming. The holographic display activated, showing crystalline structures consuming entire worlds. The footage, transmitted by the aliens, painted a picture of unstoppable destruction. "These entities adapt to conventional weapons," Morrison continued. "They learn, they evolve, and they've already consumed 17 worlds. The aliens quarantined Earth centuries ago because they thought we were too dangerous. Now that same capacity for violence, for survival, might be the galaxy's last hope." Kate studied the pressure dynamics of the crystal growth. Marcus noted similarities to certain venom propagation patterns. Lisa identified tactical vulnerabilities in the formation, while Mike focused on the temperature variations during their reproduction cycle. "You're not being recruited as soldiers," Morrison concluded. You're being recruited because each of you has mastered an aspect of survival that most species consider impossible. In 3 hours, we launch for their command center. Your mission isn't just to fight. It's to teach them why Earth's deadliest inhabitants might be the only ones capable of saving their civilization. The 4 specialists exchanged glances. Each saw in the others a familiar look, not excitement, not fear, but the focused calculation of predators assessing new hunting grounds. "Well," Kate said, patting her pressure suit, "I always wanted to test this thing in space." The human team's first step into the Galactic Council's diplomatic center caused an immediate evacuation of 3 sectors. Kate Reynolds couldn't help but laugh as alien dignitaries scattered from her pressure suit's hydraulic hiss. The massive chamber, designed to accommodate species from 1,000 worlds, emptied in seconds. "Well," Marcus Thompson mused, adjusting the sealed case containing his toxin samples, "at least we made an entrance." The only alien who held their ground was their assigned liaison, Ambassador Zixka, a tall, crystalline being who seemed to vibrate slightly in Earth's delegation presence. Their translucent form shifted colors rapidly, a sign of emotional distress, according to their briefing packets. "Your biological readings are concerning." His translator hummed. "Your muscle density alone exceeds our safety protocols, and the chemicals in your bloodstream." They gestured at Marcus, their crystalline form flickering between deep purple and anxious green. Lisa Martinez moved silently around the chamber's perimeter, her trained eyes mapping every entrance, exit, and potential defensive position. Her movement patterns, honed in Earth's deadliest jungles, made several security drones activate their threat protocols. "Please," Zixka's translator crackled. "Try to move less efficiently. You're triggering every predator alert in the facility." Mike Anderson studied the environmental readings on his suit's display. "Interesting. Your atmospheric pressure and temperature variations are minimal. How do your species develop resilience without environmental stress?" The question seemed to perplex Zixka. "Develop resilience? We engineer our environments to prevent the need for such adaptations. Your Earth's constant disasters, pressure variations, and temperature extremes are precisely why you were quarantined." Before anyone could respond, the chamber's main display activated. Footage from the 18th world to fall to the crystal entities filled the vast space. The team watched as crystalline growths consumed entire cities, adapting to and absorbing every weapon used against them. "The Nexus swarm," Zixka explained, their color shifting to a deep blue of despair. "They evolve faster than we can develop countermeasures. Our most advanced weapons are useless. Our greatest minds can't predict their patterns. We need—" They paused, their crystalline form trembling slightly. "We need beings who understand how to survive the unsurvivable." Kate stepped forward, her pressure suit's servos whining. The sound made Zixka flinch. "Those growth patterns," she said, pointing to the footage. "They're similar to crystal formations under extreme pressure. I've seen similar structures at crush depth." Marcus moved closer to the display, his modified nervous system allowing him to process the high-speed footage in detail. The way they propagate through systems, it's remarkably similar to how certain neurotoxins spread. There might be a way to disrupt their neural networks. "Their attack formations," Lisa added, emerging from her perimeter check, "mirror predatory swarm patterns I've encountered. They're hunting, not just consuming." Mike's thermal imaging equipment hummed as he scanned the footage. "Look at the temperature variations during their reproduction cycle. There's a critical point we might exploit." The chamber's doors opened, admitting several members of the Galactic Council. Each species representative moved with careful deliberation, their environmental suits fully sealed against what they considered the toxic emanations of Earth's delegation. "We have reviewed your species' historical data," the council elder spoke, their translator struggling with the complex harmonics. "Your planet's history of warfare, your survival of multiple extinction events, your ability to thrive in conditions we consider lethal. We fear you, but we need exactly what makes you frightening." Kate checked her suit's pressure seals, a habit from deep-sea operations. "You're not wrong to fear us," she said. "But right now, that fear might save your civilization. Show us everything you have on these crystals. It's time to teach them why Earth's harsh lessons might be exactly what the galaxy needs." Marcus opened his case, revealing carefully organized vials of modified toxins. Several council members stepped back involuntarily. "Sometimes," he said with a slight smile, "you need something deadly to stop something deadly." The council chamber's lights dimmed as more footage began to play. Earth's deadliest specialists stood ready, each seeing the crystal threat through the lens of their unique expertise. They weren't just humanity's representatives anymore. They were living proof of why Earth's harshest challenges had created exactly the kind of monsters the galaxy suddenly needed. The secured alien laboratory hummed with unfamiliar energy as Kate Reynolds calibrated her portable pressure chamber. 3 days of continuous analysis had left dark circles under her eyes, but she couldn't stop now. Not when she was finally seeing patterns in the crystal entity's structure that reminded her of deep-sea formations. "Look at this," she called out, gesturing to the holographic display. "When these crystals grow under pressure, they develop microfractures, just like the formations I found at 30,000 feet down." Marcus Thompson approached, his modified nervous system allowing him to process the high-speed crystal growth patterns that made other observers dizzy. He held up a vial of iridescent liquid, a modified version of cone snail venom he'd synthesized using alien technology. "They're neural pathways," he said, tapping the display. "They're not just similar to Earth's deadliest neurotoxins. They're vulnerable to the same disruption patterns. It's like they never evolved defenses against biological agents." Across the lab, Lisa Martinez had transformed an entire wall into a tactical display. Her fingers traced attack patterns through 18 conquered worlds, each movement precise and predatory. "They're using army ant algorithms," she muttered. "Swarm intelligence, but with predictable sweep patterns. They've never faced an enemy that deliberately disrupts their formation." Mike Anderson's station had become a maze of temperature regulation equipment. Frost covered one containment chamber, while another glowed with heat that made the alien observers uncomfortable. "The crystalline reproduction cycle," he announced, "has a critical temperature threshold. They've adapted to steady-state environments, but they've never encountered rapid cycling between extremes." Ambassador Izaksika watched from the doorway, their crystalline form shifting between shades of amazement and anxiety. "You've discovered more in 3 days than our scientists found in months," they admitted. "But your methods are exactly why you called Earth," Colonel Morrison finished, entering the lab. "Each breakthrough comes from understanding how to survive conditions you consider impossible." Kate activated her pressure chamber, causing several alien observers to back away. Inside, a crystal sample shattered under carefully controlled pressure waves. "In the deep," she explained, "pressure isn't just a threat, it's a tool. These entities have never experienced pressure differentials like what we see every day in Earth's oceans." Marcus held up his vial to the light. "This venom cocktail mimics how comb snails hunt their prey. The crystal's neural networks are complex, but they've never evolved defenses against organic toxins. They've never needed to. Their swarm patterns are efficient," Lisa added, her hands dancing across the tactical display, "but predictable. They've never faced an enemy that thinks like a guerrilla predator. Watch their formations. They always optimize for resource consumption, never for combat against an adaptive opponent." Mike's temperature chambers pulsed with alternating waves of heat and cold. "Look at how they fracture under thermal stress," he pointed out. "They've adapted to steady environments, but they can't handle the kind of temperature swings we see in Earth's polar regions." Colonel Morrison watched his team work, each specialist applying their unique understanding of Earth's deadliest conditions. "We're not just analyzing an enemy," he said to Izaksika. "We're showing you why evolution on a death world created exactly the kind of specialists you need." The lab's main display filled with combined data from all 4 analysis stations, Pressure points mapped to thermal stress zones, while toxin distribution patterns overlaid swarm movement predictions. It wasn't just a defense strategy. It was a predator's understanding of prey. "Your civilization engineers away environmental threats," Kate said, adjusting her pressure calculations. "Earth taught us to turn those threats into weapons. Everything that makes our world deadly became a tool for survival." Ambassador Zexika's color shifted to a deep shade of realization. "Your planet's harshness. It's not just about surviving conditions we fear. It's about learning to weaponize those very conditions." "Exactly," Marcus confirmed, sealing another batch of synthesized toxins. "Earth didn't just make us strong. It made us understand how to use everything that tried to kill us. These crystals have never faced an enemy forged by a death world." The lab's displays converged on a single simulation combining all their findings. In the holographic projection, crystal formations shattered under precise pressure waves, their neural networks disrupted by targeted toxins, while temperature shocks froze their reproduction cycle. "We're ready for field testing," Morrison announced. "Time to show these crystal entities why Earth's deadliest specialists might be the galaxy's best hope for survival." Proxima VII's surface glittered like shattered glass under the binary star's light. From their dropship's viewport, Kate Reynolds watched crystal formations pulse and grow, consuming everything in their path. The mining colony's abandoned structures stood as skeletal remnants, their surfaces already crystallizing. "Remember," Colonel Morrison's voice crackled through their comms, "this is a proof of concept. Get in, deploy the countermeasures, and get out. The Council's watching, but they won't risk their forces until we prove this works." Kate checked her modified pressure suit one last time. The alien technology they'd integrated had doubled its capabilities, but she'd insisted on keeping the manual overrides. "Some things," she'd explained, "you don't trust to automation." Movement patterns confirmed. Lisa Martinez reported from her tactical station. 3 major swarm formations, advancing exactly as predicted. They've never deviated from optimal resource consumption patterns. Marcus Thompson sealed his final venom dispenser, the neural disruptors gleaming with deadly promise. "Deployment systems ready. These beauties are eager to show these crystals what Earth's evolution can do." Mike Anderson's temperature regulators hummed to life. Environmental controls active, ready to give them a taste of Earth's climate extremes. The dropship landed behind a ridgeline of partially crystallized ore processors. Kate took point, her suit's enhanced sensors mapping pressure differentials in the crystal growths. Lissa ghosted ahead, moving through the crystalline landscape like a predator in her natural habitat. "First target acquired," Kate announced, reaching the edge of a major growth zone. Initiating pressure wave sequence. Her suit's modified systems engaged, generating controlled pressure differentials that rippled through the crystal formation. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a sound like singing glass, microfractures began spreading through the structure. "Neural disruptors, deploying now," Marcus called out. His modified toxins, atomized into a fine mist, settled onto the weakened crystal surfaces. Where the particles touched, the crystal's pulsing patterns became erratic. Lisa's voice cut through the comm channel. "Swarm response detected. They're actually changing formation. First time that's been recorded. They're learning." "Perfect." Kate grinned behind her visor. "Let's show them what else we can do." Mike moved into position, his temperature regulators creating zones of extreme thermal stress, hitting them with a polar vortex special. -60 to +40 in 3-second cycles. The combined assault transformed the battlefield. Crystal structures shattered under precise pressure waves, their neural networks disrupted by Earth's deadliest venoms, while thermal shock prevented their typical regeneration patterns. For the first time since they appeared, the crystal entities were being systematically destroyed. "They're trying to adapt," Lisa warned, watching the tactical display. "Swarm patterns shifting to defensive configurations we haven't seen before." "That's because they've never needed them," Marcus replied, deploying another wave of neurotoxins. They're experiencing actual fear for the first time. Kate pushed her suit's pressure systems to their limits, creating crushing waves that shattered crystal formations into harmless fragments. Just like the deep sea, she muttered. Everything breaks if you find the right pressure point. The battle shifted as the crystal entities attempted new growth patterns, trying to adapt to the multi-pronged assault. But each adaptation met another deadly lesson from Earth's harshest environments. When they developed denser structures against the pressure waves, Mike's thermal stress turned their strength into a weakness. When they tried to evade the neurotoxins, Lisa's predatory understanding of their movement patterns led Marcus's deployments directly to their vulnerable points. "Control, are you seeing this?" Morrison asked over the command channel. The response came from Ambassador Izexka themselves. "Our entire scientific council is watching. They're in shock. Your species isn't just surviving against them, you're hunting them. That's the difference," Kate replied, launching another pressure wave sequence. "Your civilizations evolved to avoid danger. Earth taught us to master it." As the last major crystal formation shattered under their combined assault, the team regrouped at their initial landing zone. The battlefield behind them was clear of crystal entities for the first time in months. "Mission accomplished," Morrison announced. "And more importantly, we've got their attention." The Council's seen firsthand why Earth's deadliest specialists might be the only ones who can turn this war around. Kate watched the binary stars set over the cleared horizon. "They wanted monsters," she said quietly. "Let's show them why Earth's monsters are exactly what this galaxy needs." The holographic battle map aboard the Galactic Council's command carrier showed a disturbing new pattern. Kate Reynolds leaned forward, her experienced eyes tracking the crystal entity's movements across 3 different systems. "They're adapting faster than we anticipated," she said, pointing to a cluster of formations. The pressure wave tactics that worked on Proxima VI barely cracked their outer shells now. Marcus Thompson nodded grimly, his modified nervous system detecting subtle changes in the crystal entity's neural patterns. "Their molecular structure is evolving. They're developing distributed networks that resist my toxins. We need to innovate. Fast." In the adjacent training chamber, Lisa Martinez watched as her alien students attempted to replicate Earth combat maneuvers. The sight would have been comical if the stakes weren't so high, crystalline beings trying to move like jungle predators, Methan brothers learning guerrilla tactics. "Again," she commanded, her translator conveying the intensity if not the exact tone. "The crystals adapt to patterns. Your movements must be unpredictable, like a hunting cat, not a marching soldier." Mike Anderson's voice crackled over the comm system. "We've got bigger problems. They're developing resistance to simple temperature cycling. But I think I found something in my old avalanche data that might help." Colonel Morrison gathered them in the command center, where Ambassador Izexka waited with their council liaison team. The main display showed the crystal entity's latest advancement, a hybrid formation that seemed to incorporate defenses against all their previous tactics. "Show them what you found, Mike," Morrison ordered. Mike's hands danced across the environmental controls. In the ice fields, survival isn't just about handling cold. It's about understanding how different layers of ice interact. "Look at this." He pulled up thermal imaging of the crystal entity's new structure. "They've developed layers, like permafrost. But that's their weakness." Kate's eyes lit up with understanding. "If we combine our approaches, my pressure waves between your temperature layers." "Exactly," Mike grinned. "We create structural stress they can't adapt to because it attacks them from the inside out." Marcus moved to his research station, pulling up molecular diagrams. "I can modify my neurotoxins to exploit those same layers. Instead of attacking their network directly, we use their new defense against them." Lisa studied the tactical implications. "Their swarm patterns have evolved too. They're using our own guerrilla tactics against other worlds. But they're missing something crucial: the predator's instinct to know when to break pattern completely." The alien observers watched in fascination as the human team began rapidly prototyping their new approach. Kate and Mike synchronized their pressure and temperature systems, creating a devastating resonance that shattered even the strongest crystal formations. Marcus's modified toxins turned the entity's layered defenses into a delivery system for his neural disruptors. "Your species," Ambassador Dexica observed, "their crystalline form shifting with emotion, doesn't just survive. You evolve your tactics in real time." "That's what Earth taught us," Lisa replied, still drilling her alien students in the art of unpredictable movement. "Adaptation isn't just about defense. It's about turning every new challenge into an opportunity to become deadlier." The proof came 3 days later on a contested agricultural world. The crystal entities deployed their new defensive formations, expecting to counter the humans' previous tactics. Instead, they met an entirely new kind of assault. Kate's pressure waves, precisely timed with Mike's temperature cycling, created catastrophic failures in their layered structures. Marcus's evolved toxins, delivered through the very defense mechanisms the crystals had developed, shut down entire neural networks. And Lisa's trained alien strike teams moved with true predatory unpredictability, hitting vulnerable points even as they formed. "Controlled, this is Kate," she reported as another crystal formation collapsed. "The new protocols are working. But more importantly, our alien allies are starting to think like us. They're not just copying our tactics, they're understanding why Earth's evolution made us different." Morrison watched from the command carrier as victory reports streamed in. "This was never just about us fighting their war," he realized. "It's about teaching them why Earth's deadliest lessons might save their entire civilization." Ambassador Dexica's color shifted to a deep shade of appreciation. "Perhaps," they mused, "we were wrong to fear Earth's harshness. It didn't just create survivors. It created teachers who could show us how to become something more than we were." Red emergency lights pulsed through the Galactic Council's command center as distress signals flooded in from 4 major systems simultaneously. Colonel Morrison stood before the tactical display, his face grim as he addressed his scattered team through the quantum comlink. "They've learned our playbook," he announced. "The crystal entities are launching coordinated attacks across multiple sectors. We have no choice but to split up." Kate Reynolds' voice crackled from the Centauri sector. "These aren't random strikes. They're targeting manufacturing worlds, resource centers. They're thinking strategically now. They learned that from us." Lisa Martinez responded from her position in the Rigel system. "But they're about to learn why copying Earth's tactics isn't the same as understanding them." Marcus Thompson's transmission came through garbled with interference from the Vega front. "My modified toxins are barely slowing them down. They've developed some kind of distributed neural network. It's like they're sharing immunity across their entire swarm." "The temperature variations aren't working like they used to either," Mike Anderson added from the Perseus arm. "They'd found a way to regulate their thermal structure. But I've got an idea that might turn that adaptation against them." Kate engaged her pressure suit's enhanced systems, pushing them beyond their designed limits. The crystal formation before her shattered, but the fragments immediately began recombining in a new pattern she'd never seen before. "They're not just adapting," she realized. "They're innovating. Morrison, are you seeing this? They're creating structures that shouldn't be possible according to our understanding of their physics." "Confirmed," Mike cut in. "But look at the energy cost. They're burning through resources to maintain these new forms." "Kate, remember the deep sea vents? How pressure and temperature work together." Kate's eyes lit up behind her visor. "Mike, sync your thermal data with my pressure readings. Everyone, patch in. We're about to give them a lesson in Earth's geothermal dynamics." Across 4 systems, the human specialists began coordinating their efforts in ways the crystal entities couldn't predict. Kate's pressure waves created microscopic fractures that Mike's precise temperature cycling turned into catastrophic failure points. Marcus's neurotoxins, delivered through these new vulnerabilities, found paths to critical nodes in their distributed networks. Lisa's voice cut through the chaos. "My alien strike teams are in position. They're not just following our tactics anymore. They're improving on them. Watch this." On the tactical display, alien forces moved with unprecedented coordination, hitting the crystal formations from angles that even Lisa hadn't conceived. They'd taken Earth's combat doctrine and merged it with their own unique capabilities. This is what we came here for, Morrison realized. Not just to fight their war, but to show them how to fight it themselves. The battle shifted again as the crystal entities launched a counteroffensive that nearly overwhelmed Kate's position. Her pressure suit's warnings screamed as she pushed it to generate waves that would have crushed a submarine. "Can't maintain this level of pressure much longer," she reported through gritted teeth. "Hold position," Mike responded, "combining your pressure data with my thermal readings. There. Their new adaptive structures have a critical resonance point. Marcus, can you get your toxins into that frequency band?" Marcus was already adjusting his delivery systems, like targeting a snake's nervous system during a strike. Timing has to be perfect. Lisa coordinated the alien strike teams, their movements now flowing like water around the crystal formations. "They're predicting our patterns," she warned, switching to random assault protocols. Now, the combined assault hit the crystal entities from every possible angle. Kate's pressure waves and Mike's thermal strikes created opportunities that Marcus's toxins exploited, while Lisa's forces moved with controlled chaos that defied prediction. For a moment, it seemed like even this wouldn't be enough. The crystal entities' new forms held against pressures that should have shattered them, adapted to temperatures that should have crystallized them, resisted toxins that should have shut them down. Then Kate saw it, the pattern within the chaos. "They've adapted to each of our tactics individually," she broadcast, "but they can't handle them all at once. They've made themselves too complex, too specialized. Morrison, signal all teams. Full spectrum assault, maximum intensity, randomized intervals." The response came immediately. "All units, execute full spectrum assault. Show them why Earth's deadliest specialists never fight alone." Across 4 star systems, humanity's lessons in survival transformed into a symphony of destruction. The crystal entities, for all their adaptation, had never faced an enemy that could turn their every evolution into a new vulnerability. The Galactic Council's Grand Chamber had never seen such a diverse gathering. Representatives from 1,000 worlds watched as Kate Reynolds stepped forward, her pressure suit bearing the scars of 100 battles. Behind her, Marcus Thompson, Lisa Martins, and Mike Anderson stood with quiet confidence, each carrying the weight of victories that had changed the course of galactic history. 3 months ago, Ambassador Isuka addressed the assembly, their crystalline form glowing with unprecedented warmth. "We'd broke our own quarantine protocols out of desperation. We feared Earth's deadly nature, yet we needed exactly what made us fear them." The main display activated, showing the final battle across 3 star systems. The crystal entities had evolved to their most formidable form, incorporating every adaptation they developed against human tactics. But this time, they faced something unprecedented. Kate's voice carried through the chamber as she narrated the footage. "The key wasn't just our individual specialties. It was teaching the galaxy how to combine them." The display showed alien strike teams moving with predatory grace, their formations guided by Lisa's training, but evolved into something uniquely their own. Pressure waves, generated by technology derived from Kate's deep-sea expertise, synchronized perfectly with thermal strikes based on Mike's polar survival techniques. "We didn't just fight their war," Marcus added, gesturing to the neural disruptor technology that various species had already begun adapting to their own biology. "We showed them how to turn their own unique capabilities into weapons." The footage shifted to show the final confrontation. Crystal formations that had once seemed unstoppable shattered under precisely coordinated attacks. Each alien species had taken Earth's lessons and transformed them through the lens of their own evolution. "The Council hereby establishes the Earth Protocols," the High Elder announced, their multifaceted form shifting with emotion, not just as tactical doctrine, but as a philosophy of survival. "Each world will now train specialists in the human tradition, learning to turn their natural adaptations into strengths. Mike stepped forward, displaying the environmental data from their campaign. Every species here evolved to survive different challenges, he explained. Earth taught us that those challenges are tools, not obstacles. Now you understand why. Lisa activated her tactical display, showing how various alien forces had modified her combat techniques. You've surpassed our training, she acknowledged with pride. Each species bringing their own evolutionary advantages to the strategies we taught. The chamber's atmosphere shifted as Ambassador Jessica revealed the next phase of their plans. We've detected crystal entity signatures in neighboring galaxies, they announced. But this time, we're ready. The Earth Combat Academy will train specialists from every world, teaching them to combine their natural abilities in ways the crystals can't predict. Colonel Morrison, watching from the back of the chamber, allowed himself a small smile. His team had done more than win a war. They'd transformed how an entire galaxy approached survival. Let this be recorded, the High Elder proclaimed. Earth is no longer quarantined as a death world. It is recognized as the crucible that forged the teachers we needed. Its harsh lessons have become our salvation. Kate looked at her team, each member bearing the marks of their deadly specialties. We came here as monsters, she said quietly, but we're leaving as mentors. The display showed the next generation of alien specialists already in training. Creatures of every conceivable evolution learning to turn their natural adaptations into strengths, guided by the principles that Earth's deadliest environments had taught humanity. The crystal entities adapted to defeat humans, Marcus observed, watching the footage. But they never understood why we're different. We don't just survive our challenges. We master them, teach them, transform them into advantages. As the ceremony concluded, the human team prepared for their return to Earth. They'd arrived as specialists in survival, called upon in desperation by a galaxy that feared them. They were leaving as legends, their legacies secured not in the worlds they'd saved, but in the lessons they taught. Remember, Kate addressed the chamber one final time. Earth's harshness didn't just make us dangerous. It made us understand that every deadly challenge is also an opportunity to grow stronger. That's not just humanity's story now. It's the galaxy's future. The assembled species, once terrified of Earth's deadly nature, rose in unified acknowledgement. They had learned why Earth was quarantined, but more importantly, they had learned why breaking that quarantine had saved them all.